Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Summer Vakar from Kind Theory, and we have a very special guest here with us today, Dr. Amo Raju. Before we start, I want to let you guys know a little bit about why we're doing what we're doing today. Kind Theory is a neurodivergent led nonprofit organization, and our core team, our operational team, most of our blog writers and content contributors, me, myself, the founder, we're all South Asians. We have Dr. Amo here with us. He is also South Asian, and July, along with being the Disability Pride Month, it is also the South Asian Heritage Month. But what does it mean, and how does it apply to disabled people? And what does coming from a South Asian cultural heritage mean for disabled and neurodivergent people? Those are some of the things that we're going to be discussing today. But before we start, and before I ask Dr. Amo to kind of like give us a little bit of introduction, I would like Aman to play a short 1 minute video for our content contributors who are not able to be here today, just to recognize them and give a shout out to them, because Kind Theory wouldn't be Kind Theory without them. So Aman, could you share that video, please?
मजबूरी मैं तुझसे ना डरूंगा, लाचारी मैं तुझसे ना डरूंगा, जो भी होगा जो भी होगा जो भी होगा लड़ लूंगा, बेबसी मैं तुझसे ना डरूंगा, बेचैनी मैं तुझसे ना डरूंगा, जो भी होगा जो भी होगा जो भी होगा लड़ लूंगा, निराशाएं मैं तुझसे ना डरूंगा, मायूसी मैं तुझसे ना डरूंगा, जो भी होगा जो भी होगा जो भी होगा लड़ लूंगा.
I am so proud of these three. I don't have words to explain how incredibly talented and amazing these three are. That being said, I completely forgot to give a visual description for some of my visually impaired and blind friends. I'm wearing a dark purple scarf. I'm a brown South Asian woman. I have a light purple shirt on, and I'm pretty cute. Now I'm going to ask Dr. Amo if you could give all of us a brief introduction. I don't think I'll be able to do justice to your introduction, so I'm passing over the torch to you. And then Aman and Aisha, you guys can go ahead and give a brief introduction as well.
Thank you so much for inviting me onto this live event. So yes, my name is Amo Raju. From description wise, I'm a South Asian middle-aged man. I'm in my 50s now. I know I don't look it, but I am in my 50s. I'm clean shaven. I'm wearing a black shirt. I'm not so cute. So I'll leave my description there. I am a physically disabled person, have been since birth. I have a medical condition called cerebral palsy diplegia, which is the right side of my body has a tightness and a slightly weaker and what one medical professional described as an awkward gait when I walk. I am ambulant, I do walk, but as I get older, I am slowing down a little bit, as my physiotherapist reminded me yesterday. Um, I'm married. I have 3 grown-up children. I have 3 grandchildren, and I, for the last 30 years, have run a disability support service in the Midlands in the UK, which has become one of the most successful disability charity support services in the UK. We have a roughly around £3.5 million turnover, and about across 4 companies, around 80 staff doing some incredible things. Hot off the press, I am actually stepping down from my role as CEO in a few weeks' time, because it's time for me to do something new. I've become what they're describing now as a disability ambassador. So I'm the life experiences that I've had over the last 50 plus years, and in my role as 30 plus years, people seem to be interested in that on a national scale now and international. So I'm spending more time doing these kind of events and keynote speeches and mentoring and training, etc. So I enjoy that, and it's a great way for me to finish my career.
That's amazing. There's so much I want to ask you, but first, let's get a brief introduction from Aman and Aisha. There's a little part of your introduction that you missed, and I'm not sure if you know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to touch on that after Aman and Aisha introduce themselves. But Aman, go ahead, give us a brief introduction, and then Aisha, you can go ahead as well.
Hello, everyone. This is Aman. I work as the Operations and Communication Specialist at Kind Theory, and I come from Pakistan. So I'm a proud South Asian here. I am not entirely sure if I'm neurodivergent, but I've been told multiple times that I could be. So that's something that I'm still trying to convince myself of. But surely it would be a proud moment for me as well. I'm gonna embrace it. That's it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Aman. Aisha, what about you?
I'm Aisha, and I'm also a very proud South Asian from Pakistan, and I'm the program development and content lead working with Kind Theory. And just like Aman, I've been told multiple times that I may be neurodivergent, but I'm not sure yet. Hopefully, I might know in the future.
You know, they say that when we see our neurokins, we're able to kind of identify them. And I'm just gonna leave it there. I'm not gonna probe further. But yes, Dr. Amos. So a little birdie told me, and might as well in the research, that you used to be a singer or part of a Bhangra group as well. And that's a really kind of exciting part of South Asian heritage. So I do want you to kind of give us a little bit of something on that.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay. Right. So in my late teenage years and 20s and even early 30s, in the 1980s and early 90s, the Bhangra music scene in the UK was at its height, live bands and everything. And I caught the bug. I wanted to sing. I couldn't sing. I had no training, but people seemed to think I had a strong Punjabi voice. So I screamed on the microphone, and I had guitarists and dhol players and tabla players and everything. We had a great time for about 10 years doing amazing things. And then I gave it up in the early 90s. I gave it up because I got married and I had to settle down, and my granddad and my dad said, get a proper job, as they do in the South Asian community. And so I got back in the studio in 2007. As I said, it's a bug that never leaves you. And if I'm honest with you, that bug's come again, because I've just decided I'm going to do one more track. But I got back in the studio and I did a song which I just thought it'd be just for me. But the producer went and sent it to a record company, and it became a hit overnight. So it's still, whenever I go to weddings, they play the song every now and then, and it gives me a little smile. So because
I mean, if it's not too much to ask, and please feel free to say no, can we get a little kind of like
Oh
a
gosh, no,
teaser?
you're not going to get me to sing. All I will say to anybody who's interested is, if you Google me, my song is on YouTube. You just have to put Amo Raju in there, and it's got hundreds of thousands of hits on it. So it's still doing the circuit.
Okay, all right, we'll search it up on YouTube then. But this is so exciting. I mean, I was excited about the rest of the things, amazing things that you've done, but I was like jumping with joy when I read that. I was like, oh my God.
Well, here's the thing, Tom. I mean, as a disabled person from the South Asian community, I was the first disabled singer, and that was an experience in itself. Because people, I hadn't come to terms with my impairment. In fact, I hadn't even acknowledged it. If I'm honest with you, I was just living like a teenager does, and I just wanted to live and enjoy life like everybody else did. But when I was on stage, nobody was staring at the way I walked. They were more impressed with my vocal range, and that gave me a different experience in life. And I thought, I like this. I like the fact that my disability is not the primary focus of the conversation. It's my ability to do something else, and that's an important thing for youngsters. And I'm going back to a time I didn't have role models as a child. I didn't have role models. There were no brown people who looked like me doing things. There were no brown disabled people doing anything special. So I was trying to chart my own journey, my own, without too much guidance. And the only guidance I was getting was more interference than guidance, if I'm honest with you.
So, that leads me to think it's not that back then brown disabled people didn't exist, right? They have always existed. Um, as much as I love my culture and my heritage, with South Asian culture and heritage, there is a stigma that's associated with disability. And I don't know, your experience might be a little bit different, but usually, families don't feel comfortable sharing disability of their children. And then that feeds into how they grow into adults. And, most of the people feel uncomfortable disclosing their disabilities, and rightfully so, because there are societal effects then. And, I'm not kind of like highlighting the negatives here, but that is a part of um, the culture, which I'm glad that it's starting to change now. There are people out there making ripple effects, like yourself, like coming out as a brown disabled person, like all of us brown neurodivergent people. We're trying to kind of like change that narrative, create a paradigm shift, but at the same time, I feel like it's more challenging for people of color than it is for our white friends. What do you feel about that?
I couldn't agree with you more. It's we're on a journey. That's the only thing I can say. We've had legislation internationally. Every country, certainly in the Western Hemisphere, has had legislation. You had the ADA in the USA, and you had the DDA in the UK, which followed by the Equality Act. And the white disabled community suddenly sat up straight, and the non-disabled community started paying interest in them. Whereas in the South Asian community in those countries, nothing's changed. You are still expected to sit in the corner quietly without an opinion, because the elders know better. And that has been my problem from day one. I have had to become a rebel. I've had to take on my own community, and it's exhausting. I'll be honest with you, it's been more of an awakening in the last 5 or 6 years in my life, more than anything. One of the things I forgot to mention in my introduction is I'm also an author. So I wrote a book during the pandemic, during lockdown. I wrote a book based on my life experiences, because as I said, I didn't have a role model growing up, and a lot of disabled people and non-disabled people around me said, the things you have done as a non-disabled as a disabled person, most non-disabled people won't achieve in their life, and so you need to get your story out there. And when people have read my book, most of the messages I'm getting are from the South Asian community, disabled people from the South Asian community saying, you know what, Amma, what you went through in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we're still going through today. Nothing has changed for us. Our white disabled colleagues and friends and peers, the opportunities for them are 10 to 1 compared to what we have to deal with. You know, and that really saddened me, because I thought as a world we are progressing. But what it really reminded me of also was that there's so much work to be done with the South Asian community now. As I said, I'm stepping down from my day job, and I seem to be diverting a lot of attention, focusing on the Indian and the Pakistani communities when it comes to getting them to think slightly differently, that we are not a burden, we are an asset. One of the things I have to remind people is that having a disability is almost like having a superpower. We may not be able to do certain mainstream things, but we can certainly also do things that most non-disabled people can't do. We have a layers of resilience that the non-disabled people don't have. We're constantly battling. We're the best strategists because we wake up in the morning and we have to strategize our day. Most non-disabled people wake up, get out of bed, and they live. We have to plan it the night before and start focusing, right, how do I navigate my way through the next 24 hours? So we become the best strategists. And I say it's a superpower which we need to own and take pride of, and then say, right, world, what do you want to do with me?
You know, that kind of like really transitions into what my next question is going to be. And I've written down my question so I don't forget. Why do you think that South Asian Heritage Month, should be celebrated? Why is it important? And all of that I'm asking you is in relation to disability and neurodivergence.
We have, the South Asian community have a rich, very rich history.
Yes.
And we have, within our DNA, we have something that just keeps us motivated, keeps us wanting to do better. But my granddad and my dad used to say, you don't know where you're going until you know where you've been, and you don't know where you've come from. And so we need to understand our history. We need to understand our heritage. What makes this skin brown? It's not just the fact that we've come from Asia. It's because for thousands of years our ancestors lived in that area and they soaked up all the culture in that area. And then for whatever reason, whether it's, I don't know your story, but for mine, my granddad came to the UK in 1963, and my dad followed him a year later. And suddenly we're in this new country where the majority of the population around us is white, and we're trying to understand. I was born in the UK, so I was the first Raju born in the UK, and I grew up trying to understand what is it. I'm at home, I'm speaking Punjabi. I go to school and they speak English, and I've got to understand both cultures. I've got to recognize my environment and play a part in both arenas. And I've got to do it well as well, because if I don't, I'll get a clip round the ear off from my parents at home, and I'll get told off by the teachers at school. And we've constantly been working in overdrive, and that history, it becomes quite beneficial if we understand where we've come from, what we're all about, and why we are the way we are. You won't believe this. I sit my 4-year-old grandson on my knee every week, and I say, right, recite me the names of your 11 great grandfathers. And he's got to number 4. But I just want the next generation not to forget where they came from and why we are in this place that we didn't originate from.
I think that's beautifully put. one thing that kind of like, leading on from what you said, not just from the expectation from our parents and families to be the best, to do our best, to be perfect. I think as people of color, we're also held to a higher standard, as if almost as if we have to prove ourselves more to
Yeah.
be, worthy of a job role or worthy of, any other accommodation or an equal opportunity as, as compared to our white peers. So I feel like it's double the amount of work for us. Add disability and neurodivergence to it, it's triple the amount of work for us. And then add your gender to it, it's like four times the amount of. So it's like a lot of intersections here.
I mean,
Um,
I'll tell you a short story. I mean, with the South Asian community, I mean, you'll know this. Wherever you go in the world, Indian and Pakistani parents have this thing to their children. As soon as that child is born, you're going to be a lawyer, accountant, or a doctor.
yes.
And if you're not, then we have let you down, and our world is collapsing around us. There's this belief that they have failed as parents. When I was a 6-year-old, my dad used to sit me on his knee. He'd have a drink on a Saturday night and sit me on his knee, and he'd say, "I want you to be a doctor when you grow up." And I thought, oh my God, I grew up thinking that's just not going to happen. There's no way I'm going to be a doctor. And I didn't become a doctor. As I told you, I was a singer. I did everything else, but my education was terrible for many other reasons, which we may go into at some stage. But then 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I got a call from the local university saying we want to award you a doctorate for your services to disabled people and the community. And as soon as I got that phone call, I went over to my dad's. I said, "Dad, I'm not going to sit on your knee now, but I'm telling you, I've become a doctor, and there are different ways for us as South Asians to become doctors. It's
Yeah.
not just about you have to have a medical degree and go and cure people. It's about the service that you do for humanity. That's what the doctor is for. And it's the one thing I say to, I've got 3 grown-up children. I never put the pressure on them that they have to have successful careers. That it just worked out for them that they did. We have this thing in the South Asian community that unless you are an accountant, solicitor, or a doctor, and you're not married with 2.2 children, you're a failure in life. And we parents don't realize what they do to their children when they say those kind of things and have those expectations, the pressures that they put on them. Those children grow up whilst their peers are enjoying life. We're forced into this narrow tunnel of education only, and high expectation, which then it leads to a lot of depression. It leads to a serious amount of depression. My book is also all about my relationship, as I call it, with mental health and depression. And we're talking about disability here. The main cause of my depression was the reaction I had by society to my disability. It wasn't me. I didn't even think about my disability. I just grew up and just lived the way I needed to live. But the reaction and as I used the word earlier on, the interference of society, the way they wanted me to behave, which suited them rather than what my dreams and aspirations were. And so I think, it leads to a heavy amount of depression. And I had 30 years of secret therapy. I didn't even tell anyone, never told my wife, my children, my parents. Nobody knew that I was going disappearing every now and then, just to sit in front of a therapist and offload. And these expectations that the society puts on you, particularly the South Asian community, it can have real negative effects on individuals.
That's rightfully said, and as much as it pains me to admit that, it's very much true. One of the things that I want to do, kind of like, today is, I think, the last day on July 31st of the South Asian Heritage Month. And I don't want it to just go by with a discussion on how rich our culture is, how beautiful our music is, how delicious our foods are. It goes much deeper than that, right? And one of the things that I would like to like your brain on is how do we bring that education in the South Asian culture? How do we increase our representation in different avenues of employment, um, except for the three major employment titles that are, preferred in the South Asian community? Um, how do we make those changes? And not just in the South Asian community who are residing in Western countries, but back in our South Asian countries, um, where, to be honest, they're living like 10 to 20 years behind the actual time in terms of, almost everything. How do you think, what steps can we take in order to do that?
I think you're being generous by saying 10 or 20 years. Yeah, I would go comfortably to say 100 years behind. When it comes to disability and the
Yes.
attitude towards disabled people in India and Pakistan, they've got this real. It worries me that how what the people's futures are. It was encouraging at the beginning of your event where you had that little short video and there was some youngsters on there. That was encouraging because in the South Asian community and when it comes to disability, you don't see many examples of disabled children or disabled people having fun, being smiling and being happy and living their life, because there's this stigma around disability. And when it comes to like neurodiversity, it's still a fairly new thing in the Western Hemisphere. So it's going to take another 50 years before India and Pakistan catch up on that one. And I know.
It's if there is, so since I've founded Kind Theory, I've been trying to kind of get in touch with the South Asian community back in the country. There is this notion of disability and neurodivergence being something tragic, almost like, that. And when you try to challenge that notion, and when you try to kind of explain what it actually is, and it just backfires, and you're kind of like you're taken as an enemy in the sense that you're not understanding our struggles. Part of the struggles, I think, and please let me know if you disagree with me, but part of the struggles that disabled people in India and Pakistan face is because of how they're treated, right? For them, their way of being is what they've known, right? And so for them, it's nothing out of normal. In fact, it is normal. It is every person gets disabled at a certain point in their life. So disability is a form of human diversity, right? But the way it's perceived as a tragedy in our communities, I just kind of like want to at least start putting that education out there. It's gonna take, I hope not years, but if I'm going with the pattern, it might take years to get that education out there. But is there a way to do it quicker? Like,
God, if I had the wand to wave and produce a spell to do that kind of thing, believe me, I would. But you've hit the nail on the head. The way disabled people are treated there, as it's almost, as soon as that disabled child is diagnosed, it becomes a tragedy. It becomes oh my God, what did I do to deserve this? Oh my God, we must go and do a chadar over that place, or we must go and do prayers at that temple, or because that's going to cure it. As I say, I'm 56 now. I can go to India. I go every year. Sometimes I go twice a year. I can still go, and people will say, "I can cure you. Come with me. There's a Baba sitting over there. He'll fix you." They have this mentality that we need to be cured, not that have got a different role to play in society. And it's in their, as I say, for thousands of years, it's been in their DNA that they are looking at the perfect human specimen. They've not looked at the wide range of abilities. They look at what is wrong with that individual rather than what is right with that individual, and that is incredibly inherent. Is, as I say, it goes into their DNA. You cannot change. I was having this conversation just on 2 days ago with a group of white disabled people. You can't, and they could not process. You know, why is it the other communities not caught up with us? You know, we're carrying the torch. We're fighting for equal rights for disabled people, and yet culturally this community is still behind. And the part I'm trying to get to them to understand is, if you look at my religion, for example, Hindus and the Sikhs, they believe that thousands and thousands of years ago we've been reincarnated, and our reincarnation is based on how good we were in the previous life. So to this day, I'm still told that I'm disabled because I did something wrong in a previous life. And you can't change that overnight. You cannot change that belief overnight. It's going to come with education. It's going to come with more examples of those children that you showed earlier, smiling, laughing, and joking, and doing incredible things, and more pain in the necks like me out there being visible and making noises. When the society sees that, oh, hang on, they're achieving something. Maybe it's not the end of the world. Now, I do a lot of work in the local area, particularly where I live. I'm quite well known in Derby, where I am, where I live in the Midlands in the UK, and I get a lot of phone calls from parents of disabled children, particularly parents from the South Asian community, and they say, you know, what we've seen you achieve, that's given us hope that our child has got a potential future. You and I, and possibly others like us, didn't have that. Our parents probably didn't have that. You know, we just thought, you know, he's disabled. Oh God, how are we going to manage this? Whereas examples of disabled people doing things, examples of disabled people on TV, in movies, or playing a productive role in society, it can slowly shift opinion. But it's not going to happen overnight. I'll be honest with you. 10, 20 years, no chance. I'm talking 4 or 5 decades.
I hope I'm alive to see it. That's my hope. um, you know, I want to be respectful of your time. I know we did ask for 30 minutes only, and we're already at 30 minutes.
Oh, no.
Would it be okay if we extend it for 10 more minutes?
Oh, no, not a problem, not a problem. You've got me for, well, as long as you want me, I'm here.
Thank you so much. So we've discussed some of the challenges, you know, that South Asian disabled people face. We have talked about some of the negative perceptions and the stigmas associated with the disability, you know, community. I want to talk about some positives too, and I want you to highlight in your personal journey, how has your culture, your heritage, helped you?
I think I may go back to that comment I made earlier. You know, my culture has this belief that we must do better.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever we're doing, we must do better, and our children must do better than us.
Yes.
Bar the pressure that the parents can put on the child, we still have this thing within us that whatever we're doing, we you know, is probably not good enough. There's always room for improvement, and I think that really helped me when I finally and I used the term own. When I started to own my impairment, when I started to own my disability, and I accepted that Amo Raju has cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy doesn't have Amo Raju. And when I started processing that, my culture kicked in, and my ability to say, right, what? See, Sikhs and Hindus and Muslims, we have this great belief in us about service to the community.
Yes.
We want to do better for the community. And one of the things that hit me strongly, probably about 30 years ago, 20, 30 years ago, I can't give you the pivotal moment when it happened, but it was when I realized it's not about me anymore. It's about the people around me. That if I have lived my life, I was still fairly younger then, but I still thought I'd done things in my life that other disabled people may not ever do. It's time for me to share that and encourage and inspire the next generation, and talk to as many youngsters as I can to say what can be done. And a lot of that came from my belief that it's not just about me. It's not about me working and improving my bank balance. It's about me wanting to do stuff for the community. In Punjabi we call it seva. It's about doing as much as we can for everybody else, not just about us. And that I put down to my roots, down my South Asian heritage, which is a good thing.
One thing that I want to add on to it is I've noticed one common, quality about South Asians is that they have quite a way of navigating around life. They are always looking for solutions, right? So if, let's suppose, a hurdle comes, it's almost like, there has to be another way kind of attitude, right? And I've seen a lot of South Asian members coming up with exceptional community members coming up with exceptional ideas that others in my team, wouldn't have considered per se. So I feel like the challenges that come with our culture have trained us in a way that have made us, more adaptable, flexible, and more innovative in terms of finding solutions, right?
Absolutely. I mean, as I said to you earlier, my granddad came here in 1963. My dad followed in 1964. They arrived in a new country with nothing, nowhere to go, no job lined up, just dreams and a hope to make things better for themselves. And so, that story is in the back of my head consistently, that if they can come here with nowhere to go, no job, no food on the plate, no money in the bank, and still make a go of it, I've got it easy compared to them. And that's South Asian resilience, that ability to want to better myself, I put down to my culture, and to get up and go 5,000 miles to a place where you can't even speak the language. That's an incredible feat of kind of resilience and dreams and hopes and aspirations, which touch wood, are in me and my children and hopefully their children, and that comes down back to the connection with our culture, which we must keep.
All right, so second last question. I promise we're nearing the end, but what would you recommend organization, companies, and businesses here to do to increase South Asian representation? I would like you to highlight why they should hire more of us. And I'd like you to highlight, what advantages does, hiring South Asian community members, especially South Asian disabled community members, gives to the workforce of the company.
I think everything I've already said, plus, I have this thing now where I go into a lot of companies. They always ask me about DEI. We want to improve our DEI. And I say, the first question I ask back at them is, why? Are you doing it to tick a box?
Yes.
Or are you doing it because you genuinely want to improve the diversity in your workforce and your customer base? And they always say the second. They never admit the first one, right? And so if they go to as far as admitting the latter, then I'll say, right, let's take a mirror and let's look at your company. Let's look at your board of trustees, your directors, and let's look at your your management, and then let's look at your frontline staff. How many of them truly represent the customer base that's out their shop window or out their office block? And if you can say to me honestly that you are an exact mirror of your customer base, then you don't need me. Your work is done. But if you've employed a token black person, a token brown person, a token disabled person, and you're not listening to what they're saying, that's a massive missed opportunity. Because what companies forget is we have money in our pocket, just like the white community. We will spend. But let's be realistic, Summer. You and I are going to go where people look like us. We want to
Yes.
spend our money with a company who understands our background, our culture, our beliefs, our way of life, and our thoughts and aspirations. Our spending power is in the billions, trillions, if companies get their act together. But if they still don't do it after that, then I'll go on record and saying they're probably institutionally racist. They can't help it. It's just the way they have set themselves up. And until the message comes right from the top, the chair or the MD or whoever it is who's got the significant control in that business, until they make that decision that you will change your ways of reaching customers, you will change your ways of employing and encouraging a diverse workforce. Until you do that, nothing's going to change. And so I think it's important. There's a business case. There's a moral case. The moral case goes without saying. But if you're a profit-making company and you think about money, there's a business case. We will spend money with companies where the people who are behind the desk or behind the shop counter look like us.
That's true. One of the things when you talked about DEI, and gosh, I feel like I could talk to you forever. No, but when you talked about DEI, one of the things that I've been noticing since like the very beginning is that the DEI, even within, its circle, and there's a lot of work being done, but South Asian representation is hardly there, even in the DEI initiatives. Like there are maybe one or two members, or it's just compared to our Black brothers and sisters, compared to our Indigenous brothers and sisters. I feel like even in the DEI, we are underrepresented, right? And the surface meaning of DEI is usually playing the role there, even if it's just ticking the boxes, like you said, not actually. Um, there's this quote that we use about autism inclusion, that when you invite me, doesn't mean that I just get an invitation to the party. I need space at the table to stim, to cater to my sensory needs. And I'm not saying it in those exact words, but that's what it meant. And I feel like it's absolutely applicable here as well. Uh, but that being said, the last thing that I would like all three of you to kind of share with us, relating to your South Asian lived experiences, is that, what do you think the next step, very basic level, until the next South Asian Heritage Month, what do you think should be one resolution or one goal that we should keep in our mind to increase our representation, to make efforts to kind of bring South Asian population, especially the South Asian disabled population, forward? What should be our next step? And I don't want a generic step, like spreading more education, but kind of like a milestone in per se, like a person can take or achieve individually in this coming 1 year until the next South Asian Heritage Month.
Just two things. I'll just go back to that comment you mentioned about being invited to the party and needing space. There's a quote, I can't remember who said it. Well, I do remember who said it, but I don't know if he originally said it. There's an Indian MP called Shashi Tharoor, and he was talking about the British Raj over India, and he used this quote. He said, if you're not at the dinner table, you're normally on the menu. And that's what will happen with us as a community. If we're not around that table, in that space, having an equal part in that conversation, it means that those people are actually going, or they'll be eating us at some stage. So
that's really spot on.
So yeah. So anyway, so what can we do? What needs to happen? I think it's a really tough question, that is, in terms of milestones. So I always go for softer outcomes, and for me, it's about people like you, people like your peers, wherever you are, going out there and making noise, being proud, loud and proud about your disability and your heritage, and owning it, and saying, I've got the torch. Look how bright it's shining, and we also have this real um, uh, relationship with imposter syndrome in the South Asian community and disabled people, because we've been taught to believe that we're not good enough.
Yes.
And so we've got to shake off that imposter syndrome, because the triple challenge we have is getting past our own community to say we're good enough is one thing. Then getting past the white disabled community to say we're actually on an equal with you, that's another level.
Yes.
We've got layers of prejudice to overcome. And so all I would say to everybody is, those softer outcomes, keep shouting about them. The softer little achievements that you've made in your own lives, shout about them. And if you see other people have made the little achievements, and they may not have the courage to go and make some noise about it, talk to them and say, let's make some noise together. Because the more we have positive stories of disabled people, regardless of what impairment they have, the more positive stories that are out there. If Google gets flooded with our stories, at some stage, it'll be a non-story anymore. It'll be the mainstream.
That's amazing. You're so spot on with your advice. It's for me, like for my brain, it is hard to kind of understand the enormous impact that soft initiatives can have. And the way you put it, that if like in very tangible terms, that if Google gets flooded with our stories, then that's how we come into the mainstream limelight, right? But it is a journey of its own, because by that means we need to conquer our own imposter syndromes as a community, and it's just not one or two advocates from the community cannot do it. It has to be every member of the South Asian community, every disabled member has to, you know, take some sort of a part in it to make that happen. With that being said, Aman and Aisha, would you guys like to share your advice as well, and then we can wrap up the session?
Should I go first?
Yes.
Okay, so I believe what Dr. Ang said, he was really spot on with everything. I don't think I can add anything better to it, but I do think it all starts within us. And for me personally, if I start to embrace who I am and what I can do, then maybe I would be able to allow others to do the same. Not allow, but like empower them to do the same thing. So I think it starts within us, and that's an advice that I would give to myself, honestly. At the moment.
And I think, Aman, to your point, I think one of the thing is to the way we can do that, to kind of challenge our own imposter syndrome, is to not seek validation from other people. Um, Validation should come from within you and not from other people. I mean, of course, it feels, you know, good when we get validation from other people about our lived experiences, but that shouldn't be our source of validation. What do you
That's right.
think, Dr. Ramu? Is that something that you agree with?
I would agree with it. I mean, look, my name is Dr. Amo Raju OBE. That's a lot of achievements, but
Yes.
those achievements didn't come overnight, and I made lots of mistakes, and I fell down many times making those mistakes, but I got back up, and if I became a victim of imposter syndrome on the first time I fell down, I would probably not be sitting in this position today that I enjoy. We have this, as Aman put it, it comes from within. We've got to say, I don't care. I don't care what people think. I don't. If I make a mistake, so does everybody else. But when you're brown, the limelight's on you a little bit more in the workplace because everybody else is looking for you to make those mistakes. When you're disabled and brown, it's even you got two limelights on you, looking at you, and waiting for you. So you just got to embrace and own them and say, right, yeah, Brill, shine a light. I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to win and I'm going to next time I won't make those again. You guys are on catch up with me. You're going to make those mistakes that I've got already made.
That's true. I hope I can have an ounce of courage of what you have. So I, I look forward to reading your book. Seriously, when Aisha's done with adding her points, I would like to let everyone know about. Please, if you could share the name of your book, where
Sure.
everybody can get that, that would be amazing. Aisha, could you give your points as well? I've already taken a lot of time, and I don't want to. Yeah, go ahead, Aisha.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Aman here that it all comes from like self-acceptance. Unless you accept yourself for who you are and for your roots, I don't think change can begin from anywhere but within yourself. So I completely agree with that. That's all I had to add.
All right, that's great input. And I think accepting your roots also includes accepting uh, the shortcomings of our community as well, so that we can kind of like work to make those better. So, Dr. Amo, please share the name of your book, where we can get that, your website, if any, and then we can wrap it up.
Okay, if you there's two ways of getting the book. And they're both online. One is on Amazon.
Okay.
It is available in most countries. If you can't get it, then get it through my website. My website address is www.amoraju.com. It's nice and easy. The book is called Walk Like a Man. Now, don't think that it's aimed at men. It's in fact, most of my readership is female based. So and for some reason, I get about it are from women as well. But I think that's mainly because women tend to read more than men anyway. So I don't know. I'm not making that. Could be a generalistic statement. But yeah, the books it became an Amazon bestseller overnight. It was published 2 years ago, and I think it's still in the top 100 somewhere. And so it's a great read. There are conversations about them turning it into a film and or a screenplay. So, but I've letting those conversations going on themselves.
Wow, I would read this book, and then I'll write to you and give you my perspective of why women are more inclined towards whether the generalization is true or whether it's
I will put a disclaimer already. The language in the book is quite fruity.
okay.
Because there's a lot of frustration that I haven't done it as a biography. It's
Yeah.
not I did this and then I did that. I've created a character. I've created a character who everything the character went through is actually I went through. So it's
I love that.
a story being told.
I love that. Is there for some of our readers, audiobooks are more accessible? Is there an audiobook version as well?
So it's on paperback, hardback, audio, and ebook on Kindle. So as many formats as you want.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Amoraju. I'm gonna YouTube your song after we and I'll request everybody to do the same and order his book. He's an amazing person. I'm only meeting him from for the very first time, and I couldn't tell that I'm meeting him for the first time. He's been so open, so friendly, so kind ever since the day I reached out to him. So I can only imagine how good and, effective his book and his words will be. So I'm going to go ahead and place an order right after hanging up and YouTube that song. And hopefully we'll get to do this sometime again in the future soon as well, Dr.
Not
Aman.
a problem. I'm happy to talk to you anytime.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, how do I